following program is a production of Ho'ike Kauaʻi Community Media.
Do we have any community announcements from the audience? Yes.
Tuesday, the governor will be here. It is the annual Kauaʻi Chamber of Commerce's governor's luncheon. There are still tickets available. Mark Perriello is not here. There's still tickets available, so please come. We do have an open forum as well, and part of the agenda is you can do a Q&A with the governor. So it's kind of like your one time to talk directly to Joshua Booth Green. Thank you.
And for those of you who don't attend many of the chamber meetings, these events do sell out. So if you do want to, be there for the governor, you really should sign up pretty quickly. I'll give you 5-to-1 odds that it will be sold out. Let's see, Scott Yonker is over here. It's Kauaʻi Now, not Kauaʻi News Now. And the reason I'm pointing him out is, one is we're glad to have him here, but what we're going to be trying to do is take what we're going to be getting out of today's discussion and also for future meetings, and we're going to want to spread it onto the different social places that we offer on Kauaʻi, because we want to get the word out, not so much about LBA, but about what our speakers have to say, because we believe we've been doing this for 23 years now. We have great presentations. We've been doing it for that long. But we need to get the word out beyond just the people who show up. And so we're glad to have, somebody from social media. Ho'ike also had, oh, that's right. Her title is News and Events producer. News and Events. I actually went online to go read it, but and because Ho'ike Now has their own weekly news event also. And let's see if there's anything else. Oh, reason for this, I came down with COVID for my first time ever. For me, it was almost a non-event. And by the way, I passed all the rules and the doctors and all that stuff. But they all said, Jimmy, it doesn't hurt to have this anyway. But I'm just telling you all, I had gotten out of the habit of wearing masks, because COVID is gone. Well, no, COVID isn't gone. So, that's why I'll be wearing my event mask. And consider wearing yours if you're going to major events in the future, because it does transmit very, very easily. And with that, we're going to move on to our presentation here. David Bissel is the CEO of KIUC, and John Cox. John, I don't know your exact title. I'm just going to say Transmission and Distribution Manager. I'm sure you have an actual title, but I guess I got it. And with that, I'll let them go forward.
Thanks, Jimmy. I'm David Bissel. Good morning and aloha, everyone. And to my left is John Cox. Yes, he's in charge of our transmission and distribution. What that means is he's got a big job that's important to everybody on this island. He's the one that he doesn't make the electricity, but he's the one that gets it to your home or business. And he's really one of the key guys in the fire safety, fire mitigation side, bringing in a lot of new technology. Fire's always been kind of in our mindset and risk analysis for the utility, but it certainly became a huge issue for us after the Maui wildfires. So we spent a great deal of time over the last year trying to get better, working with a lot of the community agencies and County of Kauaʻi folks, trying to all work together to improve our responses to fire and try to make the chances of it happening much less. So it's really not a KIUC alone effort with our power lines. We all have to work together. That goes down to homeowners, business owners trying to make their properties less prone to fire. So we'll talk today about what we're doing. John will talk about some of the cutting edge technologies we're deploying on Kauaʻi. Other planning efforts for a utility, we're always planning. It's kind of a good time with the storms out in the Pacific. Gets us looking. We always have had hurricane planning documents, formal documents at KIUC. We also now have a formal wildfire mitigation program. We have cyber incident response and recovery plans and natural hazards mitigation plans, all of which we work. I guess it's a good and bad. We get to practice and utilize a lot of plans on Kauaʻi because of the various disasters we've had. So with that, I'll turn it over to John. Afterwards, we're certainly available for any questions on fire mitigation, any of our plans, really anything KIUC. Here you go. John Cox.
Thank you, David. Good morning, everybody. Okay, I got a couple things that I'm going to be talking about today. First of all, we're going to go over the new technologies that KIC is using in regards to our wildfire mitigation measures. From there, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do in red flag warnings or similar situations as far as how we operate the grid and what different things we do on our grid to mitigate wildfire ignitions. Starting off, drone inspections. So this year we've initiated, outside contractors have come in. They came in January of this year, utilizing drones to do our pole inspections. So normally that would be a manual process. Somebody would go out to a pole, get their binoculars out, do an inspection, bang on the pole, check for rot. Utilizing drones, we got high resolution pictures, infrared in regards to hotspots, and also LiDAR. So the high res pictures gives us a different perspective. Obviously, the drones are up above our poles and lines, so we can, get these high res pictures that we can really see what's going on as far as our infrastructure on the poles, corrosion, rot, broken insulators, things like that. The infrared gives us hotspots to where we can go out. Our line crew guys can go out and address those hotspots. When it comes to LiDAR, the LiDAR is a different camera on the drone. They do a higher level pass over our lines, and it's primarily for our veg management crews. So the LiDAR pictures gives us a proximity of vegetation, how close it gets to our lines, and from there we push that out to our veg crews. So we started off with these contractors in January. They did all of our Kauaʻi circuits. We have 5 circuits in Kauaʻi. They did such a great job. We brought them back in June, and we ended up addressing the majority of our west and south regions as far as our distribution circuits. Pole inspections. We used to do manual, somebody out there banging on a pole, checking for rot. We've also used outside contractors that actually drill into the base of the poles. Those types of inspections are only looking for rot at the drill site, and it does cause some structural issues with the poles. We have a new technology that we've been using since December of last year, and it is a hammer, and there's some transducers on there, but essentially when we're banging on the pole, it sends a sound wave up and down the pole, and when it gets reflected back, there's transducers that capture that wave signal, and by analyzing that wave signal, they can give us a pole health index, so a condition of the pole. Next is weather stations. We've been implementing these Tempest weather stations at all of our facilities, substations, control houses, satellite offices, and base yards. And we have there's a subscription fee associated with these weather stations that by buying into the subscription, there's other users on island. So we implemented about 30 of these. I think there's a total, I believe, about 100 on island. So up in our dispatch, we have a screen where our dispatchers can see real-time data in regards to
wind gusts, wind speed, um, relative humidity, and temperature. So we're using this weather data to get a little more granular in regards to when red flag warnings are issued. I believe they're coming out of Honolulu Airport. So we've had red flag warnings here that's gotten issued from Oahu, and it's actually raining here on Kauaʻi. So, we do take that red flag warning into account, but these weather stations just give us a little bit more data in regards to certain areas of the island that are more fire prone, so we can, check these wind gusts and see what's actually going on in these situations. So with all of that new technology that we got going on, our workload is just exploded. So to help us with that, in May of this year, we brought down an additional line crew. These are contractors. So in-house, we have about 20 guys. So we brought down an additional crew, so 5 linemen, and we've been feeding them rotten poles from all of this information we're getting from this newer technology. So like I said, I think they've been here since the middle of May, and they're a little over 120 rotten poles have been replaced. So these guys are doing rotten poles every day. We do bring them into work with some of our crews. Yesterday is a good example. Up in Kauaʻi, we had a scheduled outage, so we had 8 poles that had fire damage that needed to be replaced in a Kauaʻi fire. So our east and west side crews, along with these contractors, we were able to replace. We did 8 distribution poles in regards to the fire damage. Okay, red flag warnings. Red flag warnings. There's like three things that need to happen before a red flag warning is issued. There's this KBDI index, and this index is just looking at rainfall and temperature or drought conditions. It needs to be above 600. It looks like typically, in August or September is normally when, that 600 number is exceeded. I believe right now it's sitting at around 550 and it's trending upward. The second one is relative humidity less than 45% and winds greater than 20 miles an hour. So when all of these things happen and they hold true for 2 hours or more, a red flag warning is issued out of Honolulu. Like I said, it's a tool we use, but we also have the Tempest weather stations that we can drill into and check real-time data and use that to address wildfire mitigation. As far as operations on the grid, this one is it's a little hard to explain, but what we do is normally when we have a fault on the system, our substation breakers are automatically programmed to trip open and they automatically reclose. We do that 2 times before. On the last trip, the breaker just stays open. Okay. In a red flag warning, to prevent fire ignitions, what we call it in-house is placing the breakers in one shot. So all that means is that the reclosing is blocked. So if there's a problem on the system, the breaker is just going to open up and it's going to stay open. From that point, our outside crews need to go and figure out what the problem is and address the problem. So in that period of time, that whatever that particular circuit is, those guys are no power. They're with an outage. Along with that, we have implemented sensitive settings at our substation breakers that allow our breakers to trip faster in these events. So we block reclosing, and we also have sensitive settings. The problem with that is, well, I don't want to say it's a problem. I mean, we do that to prevent wildfires, but when that occurs, the breaker can trip open very quickly. We don't give enough time on our grid for fuses to blow. So our troubleshooters and line crew need to essentially look at the whole circuit to determine what the problem is. So, it's going to take longer to find the problem. Um, Once we do find the problem, repairs need to be made. From that point, before we re-energize that particular circuit in a red flag warning, we would still need to physically drive the entire circuit to make sure everything is okay on that. With that said, that still doesn't guarantee that we're going to energize the circuit back. So depending on weather conditions, we may choose to keep that circuit out. We have designated, right, so we have about 43 circuits on the entire island. We have 15 circuits identified in a red flag warning, and this is based on our fire maps that we potentially would put these circuits in one shot. So these circuits affected would be from Halfway Bridge. We have a substation over there. From Halfway Bridge going south and west. So, Halfway Bridge all the way out to PMRF, essentially. Power isolation. So this is intentionally dumping customers. We have 3 locations on the island that we've already identified. If the conditions are severe, that we would end up dumping these customers. First is our Kauaʻi circuit. Kauaʻi circuit is by far our longest circuit. It's about 18 or 19 miles long. Our typical distribution circuits are less than 2 miles long. So Kauaʻi is definitely in a fire-prone region. The second location is Kamakani and Pakala circuit. That circuit holds about 340 customers. Just going back to Kauaʻi real quick, there's about 115 meters on that particular circuit. Kamakani, Pakala is the second, and the last place that we may potentially isolate power would be our Mahalapu circuit. So we have a substation next to the old Koloa mill, and we have a circuit that runs back toward Mahalapu, CJM stable. I believe there's only 5 customers on that circuit. So I think the Hyatt has a golf maintenance shop back there. So 5 or 6 customers on that circuit. So just to wrap it up, we have all of this new technology here. When red flag warnings, do come into play, we have additional data that we can use to be more specific if we're going to put breakers in one shot or if we're going to leave them in automatic mode. And extreme situations, we have 3 locations pegged where we would be dumping customers if the weather data warranted that. One more thing about placing breakers in one shot. So like I said, all 43 of our breakers have this capability, and we can enable this remotely. The 15 circuits that we do have flagged right now, if the circuits are put in one shot, it is windy. Outages will be prolonged for sure. Anything you want to add, David?
Thank you, John, and thank you for all that you do and your crews do to keep the lights on and keep us safe and to bring in all this technology. We talk about red flag warnings, and they're certainly a big part of our response. But as John said, that's coming out of Honolulu. So we're also supplementing with our own internal weather information, our boots on the ground observations. We've got crews all over the island. And my point is, don't tie yourselves to red flag warnings. We could take actions under other conditions. It's really important that you monitor our communications. We're going to try to communicate as early and as well as we can, but things change. We will make decisions based on Kauaʻi situations, so we may not be following what you'd see in Oahu or other areas. For example, yesterday we put out a notice that with these incoming weather, we could be doing some of the actions John talked about. That may not be done on the other islands, may not be done here, but it's really key that you know it. We'll let you know as soon as we can, but that may be very short. In the Hanapepe fires, for example, we had very limited time to make decisions. There was essentially minutes to say when we were going to be de-energizing circuits. So we're going to do our best, but really try to look and follow our communications. I just kind of show of hands, how many people yesterday saw our constant contact and that we might be doing this. So what's that, maybe 15% of the room. Pay attention if you can to emails. We try not to send them unless they're really important, but when they come out, they probably have information you want to see. So we're working, we're constantly trying to analyze situations and make calls. One of our advantages, we're small. John and I and our operations guys can get together quickly, make determinations. We're going to try to do what's best to keep us safe and keep the lights on. We don't like talking about de-energizing circuits. We don't like talking about shutoffs. That's not what our DNA is. Our DNA is trying to keep the lights on, but the world's changed and we're trying to adapt with it. The Hanapepe fire, some interesting things. I talked about the short notice on that, but really was an amazing technical feat from KIUC. We had to shut off a section of our grid, our transmission grid, and normally that would have caused the whole west side to be out for the duration. But we now have renewable resources on the west side, a PMRF and a battery system out there. So our technical guys, John and his team, were actually able to set us up where we had two grids operating on the island. We had a west side grid and the rest of the island grid. We've never done that before. I'm not aware of it ever really being done anywhere in the country. So we've proven we can use situational awareness, try to isolate our grid and use our diverse technology to minimize the outages as much as we can. Worked well. It was pretty fascinating that we were running off a battery and trying to balance how much battery life we had and how long the outage might go. So we ended up deciding to focus on Waimea and keeping the hospital and the community center going. And we were trying to do it with the potential that we'd have to go all night and then the next day before the solar would start again. So kind of a wild thing is, that's the way our operational guys work. They talk about this and plan it, but every situation we face is different. There's no real scenario where you say we're going to have a fire for a 5-mile area and how do we do it? They're using their knowledge from having worked here for decades and great understanding of our system to make calls and try to keep the lights on as much as they can. So they really did a great job on that, really innovative, really proud of what they did. Takeaways from all this, there's really no cookie cutter response for us. Sometimes we'll have red flags and warnings and have days to prepare. Sometimes we'll have minutes. So we just need to be prepared. People with medical situations need to make sure they're covered. You can't count on KIUC all the time. You can count on us 99.9% of the time, but for certain people, that's not enough. So if you need oxygen, need medical supplies, make sure you have a source where you can get by for a couple days in the event that there is a fire or a storm that we have to de-energize for longer periods. So good side on this, we learned the microgrid opportunities and potential is really exciting. And I think it's great, the technologies we've deployed effectively and in the way we're dealing with this. Fire is only going to become a bigger problem around here. I think this is what Jim, the third in a row meeting talking about wildfire and potential, and we really do all have to work together and try to become as resilient and fire resistant as we possibly can. With that, that's all I have. John, you got anything else? Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, now it's your turn. Okay. As always, we look forward to questions from the audience. And again, your voice will be recorded and it will go on social media, but your face will not be on it. What questions do we have from the audience?
Good morning. I'm Randy Francisco. I live up Hanapepe Heights, so I just wanted to say thank you. I was right there across the street from the fire, and I was this stupid default guy trying to tell the local people, get out of the way because of red water wagons couldn't come up. And what I learned was people really cooperated. What helped was the communication, but I wanted to echo everything you said because it takes all of us to work together. And as I saw the fire approaching the house, I was reminded that we all got to work together. And right after that, my whole neighborhood started to cut down their dried, soon to be burnt vegetation. So that's the kind of stuff we need to continue to think about. So congratulations, fire department, KIUC, and the entire community, especially people who are sending out, unfortunately, false information or incorrect information on social media. So that needs to be monitored. It was suggested that the Kauaʻi Methodist Church burnt down. So I got a photo to prove that it was still there. So mahalo.
Additional questions?
I was wondering what kind of communications equipment do you rely on to be able to use the one shot? Meaning, what would break that would prevent you from utilizing that critical service?
That one-shot capability. So our dispatchers down at Port Allen, these guys are 24/7, and we have fiber and other communication networks that go out to all of our substations. So that allows us to control whether we want the breakers in automatic mode versus one-shot mode. If communication does go down, then it will most likely be our electricians driving out to these control houses to manually place those breakers in one shot.
That was one of the interesting things of the Hanapepe fire. We were also monitoring internally the progress of the fire by watching the communication links because that's the lowest level on the lines. And eventually we see when they go away, we know we've got problems because it's burning real close to our poles. So that is a challenge.
Additional questions?
I'm wondering, in addition to email, do you have other ways to communicate to your customers that may be quicker, more immediate, and efficient?
But that's a great question. In addition to emails, we really try to use all social media. We have text access. We will go on the radio stations if we have time, and if they're actually with live people at that point. But we have several of our communications people are here. Beth and Allison kind of wave if. And one thing we'd encourage everybody to do is get us your cell phone number so we can send texts. That's the most immediate we have and the best way to reach out. But we'll use it all: text, radio, social media, really all the top social medias we'll try to respond on. So we're always trying to do better at it, but it's a challenge. There's no one way to communicate anymore.
I don't know if I need the microphone or not. Everybody thinks they don't need it, but
I've noticed a few of the replacement poles going up are not wood anymore. Why are you guys using those versus the wood ones?
Does wood burn?
They're composite type poles. Obviously, these poles aren't prone to any, unlike the wood, these poles are not going to burn. Also, when it comes to inspections and obviously these poles don't rot or anything, so we probably have about 100 or so poles on island. So we just started implementing the use of these composite type poles. We won't be able to use them in all applications, especially areas that where our guys need to do climbing. There's spikes that they use for climbing. It's not going to work with the composite poles. So it just, we're trying to have a good balance of both. But yeah, composite poles for sure.
And just be
I'd like your reaction to an idea. So, as you know, especially for some of us that live up Hanapepe Heights and other places where there's only one ingress and egress, and there are other roadways that also could use this. What about expanding or setting back the poles further away from the roadway? So, in case of a hurricane or strong winds, if the poles go down, they don't block the roadway as it did during Iniki. I saw some photos of some of the disasters in Texas, and they had poles down, but it didn't affect the roadway. Another advantage of that is you create a way to do double lanes in case of emergency, so there's faster evacuation from the fire area, so we're not stuck in traffic and backed up. As you know, we have that problem even when it's not an emergency.
In regards to where we set our poles, we need to stay within our right-of-ways and easements, based on county roads, state roads. So it's dictated to us where our poles need to be.
Consider measures that are not normal to reflect the dire situation here with wildfires and other things like that. So, not working with the rules that we have now, but can we
Sure.
think about other alternatives?
Yep.
No, that's a good point. Everything should be considered. Clearly, we have transportation constraints on Kauaʻi, and working with our local, state, federal representatives to try to get the roads better, get access better, more ways to escape an emergency, I think is something we need to be looking at, and we'd certainly be open to and receptive to those discussions.
Hi, in regards to the micro kind of grid, what you did on the west side, you mentioned the one-shot breaker from Halfway Bridge, kind of west. That's obviously a lot of generation over there. If a breaker were to that area, would the rest of the island going dark, or do you have enough batteries and generation to kind of balance?
The breakers, okay, so Halfway Bridge going out to PMRF represents about 30% of KIUC's load. We do have battery systems out in Lihue as well as at PMRF. So it just, it kind of depends what lines we lose and where to have those capabilities to microgrid. In the Hanapepe Kamakani fire, all we got is 2 transmission lines going out west from Port Allen. In working with KEMA, we got the call that we needed to open up these transmission lines. So normally when that happens, there is no generation source beyond that. But at that particular time, we had SOC on our battery system out in PMRF. So when we did open those 2 transmission breakers, we were actually feeding load from PMRF back into Kekaha and Waimea area, even though the rest of our grid from Kamakani going back to Port Allen was isolated.
Yeah, and that SOC would be state of charge for the non-technical people. But we have it's nice that our grid, but we have generation, Lihue area, Port Allen area, further west. Like to get some more on the North Shore. Would be Wainiha Hydro is really the key out there. We have generation in Anahola, but trying to have diverse generation sources gives us more opportunity for microgrids. So we'll continue to work on that. Microgrids and ability to use them are a real key to restoration of hurricanes or storms as well. So it's a big area we'd like to do more to continue to improve in that.
I have my own question. And part of this, I know I'm on the board of directors for KIUC also. But let's say the Waimea, the Hanapepe fire that happened about a month ago, our response compared to what it might have been a year ago prior to Lahaina. How did our response to the Hanapepe fire differ from what it might have been prior to Lahaina?
John can add some technical sides to it, but from a business side, I think the immediate reaction when we hear fire, everybody's mobilizing right away. I mean, it becomes an extremely high priority immediately. It's probably the number one side of it. Technology, we were using weather station data that we wouldn't have had before to see how dry it is out there. Had cameras from our Port Allen area and some of our substations that we could try to see what was going on out there. So John probably has some more technical side, but I think it's just really the focused response and immediate response to any fire situations, the biggest change I see.
Just adding a little to that. So, in the Kamakani Hanapepe fire, it worked out to where we could microgrid. I mean, we've been talking about this internally for a few years now, and it just, in all situations, we probably won't be able to island and break our grid. So it just depends on the situation, and I don't want to say we make that call on the fly, but I mean, when we get calls in to de-energize lines, I mean, it's we play the hand that's dealt to us essentially. So if we can do it, we certainly will try to do it.
And also are working with KEMA. They had the operations center, emergency operations center, mobilized fairly quickly on this. We have staff down there as soon as we can get them. So the coordination between KEMA, keeping all the agencies, and KIUC working together and responding, I think it's always been good. I think it just gets better year after year and situation after situation. So the theme probably is we all work together, try to get better, even better at that every opportunity we get. So it takes all of us to respond and deal with emergency situations.
Well, obviously, you did a very good job explaining everything to the audience because we have no more questions. Okay, with that, does anybody have any thoughts that came up in the last 30 minutes, things that they'd like to briefly mention to the audience? And if not, in the past, they've always been willing to stay up here a few extra minutes to ask any personal questions. So please, if you have anything, come on forward. Not personal questions, obviously. Individual questions, yes. And with that, I'll close this meeting. Thank you very much. Aloha.